So I haven't been talking about the top 10 lists in kind of a while. That's because I just think most of them were pretty good and didn't have many gripes with them. So I just don't think it's like worth wasting time just talking about what I agree with, quite frankly. But I had a lot of some people have some gripes about the shortstop list. So I'm going to take some time to talk about it. And yeah, I mean, let's just get right into it. So let's see what we got here. So number one was Trevor Story. One second, I'm sorry, I need to just pull this up. So number one, Trevor Story. Now, I think a lot of people might have had gripes with this, saying he was too high. But I just think Trevor Story is such an underrated player. I'm not going to say yet whether I agree with it. I just am going to say some initial thoughts and then we'll go through it a little bit more. Listen, Trevor Story, last year, 11 home runs, 290 average, OPS around 900 each of the last few years. I mean, I just think with just incredible defense, I just think he's a very underrated player, quite frankly. I just don't think he gets the respect he does. Maybe it's because he plays short. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to start putting some more respect on this man's name, and everyone should just listen. It just is what it is. Like, he's way better than you think, I think. Number two, we had Tatis Jr. Not sure if I think he's too high yet, but listen, the great player, but a shorter sample size for sure. Number three, Bogarts, a quietly underrated player, I think, despite him playing in Boston. His defense kind of hurts him. He kind of reminds me of like Jeter in a way. So like he makes the plays to him, but like the range just really isn't there. Like it makes some plays that a lot of other shortstops I think look routine, look a little more difficult, but the plays are made. However, the range can certainly be a factor. Number four, we got the new Met, Francisco Lindor. Let's just go through the rest of these. Number five, Trey Turner. Number six, Corey Seager. Seven, Correa. 8, Bichette. 9, Baez. And 10, we got Anderson. So, and just something to note, I believe they were counting Glaber as part of this list, and he is being left off. So, Tim Anderson, by the way, for number 10. Let's just look through this, and I'm just going to say what I think. My first real gripe, well, first we'll just talk about Glaber really quick. So why isn't he here? Well, I think offensively, well, first of all, I'm going to say this really quickly. I think the top five are the top five. Now, the order you can certainly gripe with, but I think the top five is simply put the top five. And I think Seager is in the perfect six after them. So then if you're going to compare Glaber to the next four, which is Correa, Bichette, Baez, and Tim Anderson, okay, we're going to look at that. Because offensively, they're kind of, all these players are kind of similar. I mean, Correa I just think should be a little bit lower because he's coming off a pretty bad year, but I understand him being on the list for previous seasons, even though he's been kind of up-down in the last few years. I might have Correa off, quite frankly, in Glaber 10, but let's just say, like, why we think that. Well, the reason is, these all are guys who are solid hitters, maybe not top level hitters, but the thing is, all these guys just play great defense. Looking at Baez, a great defender, obviously. Even though he's coming off just a terrible hitting season, his defensive value is just so good that, like, that's what it is. Like, the reason Glaber is simply not on this list is because his defense has just been so poor. And it's just kind of tough when you see the competition, I believe, to put him in this list, I think, over guys like Tim Anderson, who's coming off a great season, who plays great defense, a guy like Baez, who was pretty bad offensively last year, but has had great offensive seasons in the past and is an elite tier defender. Bo Bichette, who's only going to be 23, coming off a career 900 OPS, who's a good defender, and Correa, who wasn't very good last year, but is a solid defender and just like has been a great hitter in the past. So that's where I would say that's why he just barely misses the cut for me. Now they all are kind of similar offensively. Now, let's also keep in mind Gleyber's coming off a season where he did bat with a 724 OPS last season. That plus the defense is probably just what's kind of put him off. Obviously, he's still very young, like Bichette, so I expect to see him on next year, but for the time being, that's just sort of what it is. His highest OPS ever is 871. I believe all these other players on the list have had a OPS higher than that. The only one that might not have is Tim Anderson, and I'm going to check that really quick. Now, not that number of 871 is bad, but it's just when we're looking at the competition, they've all had better ones. For last year, for most of them, Tim Anderson 886 last year, Gleyber's a year removed from that. So that's probably just what it is. Like all of them are similar level hitters. It's just the defense kills Gleyber in this case. Let's just get back to the main part of the list. So the bottom four, I would probably have ordered a little bit differently. So I probably have Bichette 7, Tim Anderson 8, and then I'd go Baez and Correa 9, 10. Just because they're coming off poor seasons, I just put Baez ahead of Correa because of the defense, quite frankly. I think Seager, number 6, is kind of just a slam dunk there. I just think he's the perfect in-between of these two groups, quite frankly. He's definitely better than all the ones we were just talking about. But because of the injury and the games played, but I'm going to have to put him not in the elite tier is what I'll call it. So that's why I have him 6. I think the Shredder did a good job with that. So yeah, I mean, Seager obviously a great player, 943 OPS last year, but a small sample when he's coming off a 917 and then a injury shortened 744 OPS. Top 5 now. My first gripe is probably with Trey Turner. I think he should be higher, quite frankly. Let's just talk about this group as a whole. Because quite frankly, they're all very similar offensively. It's just what it is. What's the difference? Probably defense for most of them, except for Lindor. I think it's a little below on the offensive end, but the defense kind of, we'll get into that. They're all pretty similar offensively, except for Turner has a major speed advantage. So what I'll say is I believe Trey Turner should be number 1 because they're all similar offensively, but he just brings so much more value in his base running and his speed, and while playing really good defense. I need to double check that he plays good defense, but as far as I know, yeah, I mean, like, Trey Turner batted 335 last year, 982 OPS, which I believe is the highest of this group, while playing with just incredible speed. I mean, it's just kind of is what it is. I mean, yeah, I mean, I believe Trey is a solid, like, not great defender, but kind of just makes plays in his range, has hard times with the ones out of the range, but which is why his errors are a little up because he gets to them but doesn't always make the plays. But however, what I'll say is I believe due to all the value he has offensively and the wide skill set, I would put him number 1. Now it's kind of a break for me between 4 and 5 then, and then 2 and 3. So between 4 and 5 it would be Lindor and Bogaerts. It's really just coming down to what you value more. Bogaerts is better offensively. Lindor is better defensively. So I'm just going to give Bogaerts the edge. He had a half a WAR higher last year. Bogaerts is quietly very underrated, I think. 870 OPS last year, which is about the same as Lindor, about 940 the year before. The defense is definitely lowest, so that's why I go Lindor 5, Bogaerts 4. Then between 2 and 3, I think you go either way. I'm going to go Story 2, and then Tatis 3. And I just think Story has done it for a longer time. His defense is really good, and Tatis kind of had cooled down in the second half of last season. That's why I would give him the edge. So my final list, hey, you can debate me on this, tweet me if you want. I'm going to go with number 1, Trey. I'm going to go 2, Story, 3, Tatis, 4, Bogaerts, 5, Lindor, Seager, 6. I believe I had Tim Anderson 7, 8, Bichette, 9, Baez, and 10, Correa. Alright guys, that's all the time I have. I have to go back to my engineering homework because for some reason I thought that was a good major. feel free to tweet me about this if you want me to discuss more. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to send in questions for next episode.